Hey, Mike with Nerd Problems Gaming here, and today's video we'll be doing a review and how to play video on the Marvel Damage Control board game, so let's get into it. Alright, so Damage Control is a game where you're playing as different construction crews as you try and repair the ruins that are left behind after the different Marvel heroes have been battling it out against Marvel villains. And so the overall object of the game is to have the most power or points at the end of the game, and you'll do that by cleaning up the debris from the various battles between these superheroes and supervillains. And so to start off the game, as we set up, we'll be doing this for a 2-player game. And so the first step of that is to build the overall construction zone. And so there's little puzzle-like pieces that you can put together. Again, right now this is for a 2-player game, so you'll just do one longer side across the board to form this smaller version for a 2-player game. Again, as you play with more players, this will just expand to a larger size. Okay, now that we've done this, we need to set up the starting board. And so to do that, you're going to need to create your starting decks, character decks, as well as debris piles that's going to fill up this construction zone. And so to do that, you're going to start off by choosing 2 of these different hero type decks and combining that with the initial character standard deck. And so again, there's 4 different types of these character decks. You've got the Mystical deck, the Pym-Tech deck, we've also got Asgard, as well as Vibranium. And so again, to start off, you just take 2 of these. So in this case, we'll take the Mystical as well as the Pym-Tech decks. And we're going to take the character cards from these and add them to the standard character deck. So now that we've got the 2 special character cards from these sets, we're actually going to shuffle those together with the standard character deck. And again, this will form our character deck that we're going to set off the side of the construction zone. So again, we'll set these off to the side, and then we'll actually flip up 5 heroes, forming the character row at the top. Now on top of that, you're going to create the Rubble deck. And so we'll take these special Rubble cards from the corresponding 2 sets that we chose and add them to the standard Rubble deck as well and shuffle those all together. The other 2 hero decks and Rubble decks that you're not using, you can just set those off to the side and they won't be used for this game. Okay, so we've got this deck shuffled, and now how this works is each player is going to get 9 cards in a 2-player game, and then they will take turns dropping 8 of these face down, and the final card they will drop face up. Alright, so we've got 2 piles of 9 cards here, and then you'll alternate back and forth between players, dropping a card approximately 8 inches or higher above the construction zone, and they need to fall within this destruction zone. And then on the final 9th card, you'll do that one face up. So again, we can alternate dropping these to fill this out until there's only 1 remaining per player. And then we'll do those last ones face up. And this will form the base set to start off the game. The next step is to give each player a desktop. Choose one of them to be the starting player. You can give each of them reference cards as well. They're double-sided, but in this case it's a 2-player. Just give each person 1 of each side. Make sure they also get a vault card, and they'll also start with 1 influence coin as well. Make sure both players have that. On top of that, you're going to give each player their starting deck, which is 2 engineers and 3 construction cards. Also, each player is going to randomly get 1 manager card, like you see here. So you can shuffle these up and deal 1 out to each player, in addition to their starting cards of the 2 engineers and 3 construction cards. Alright, and when it comes to choosing who is the first player, it's the person that most recently read a comic. And again, to start off the game, each player will draw 4 cards to form their first starting hand. Now again, the object of the game is to be the player with the most power at the end of the game, and there's a couple of different ways that the game will end. One is if the entire destruction zone here is fully empty, there's no more cards left, or if the final card has been drawn from the character deck. That will trigger the end of the game, and all remaining players will be given a chance to take a turn meaning that every player had an even number of turns. Now, when it comes to playing cards on your turn, there's a few different actions you can take. You can uncover a card, extract a card, vault a card, or demo a card. And so uncover is taking a face down card from the rubble and placing it face up in the same spot and then resolving its event. And so in order to uncover a card, you must have the full radar symbol visible. And so again, in this case, if I were to uncover that one, try and put it in the same spot and flip it over. Anytime you reveal a card like this, you need to take the action listed on the top of the card. And so there's several actions that might happen. The most common would be a character sighting and collapse. So a character sighting means that a new character will come into play, and if they're a full row here, you actually need to discard the one most to the right, shift them over, and flip up a new card. For a collapse, the other player will actually take a card from the rubble deck and drop it face up into the destruction zone. Basically what that means, again, the other player would take this face up, drop it somewhere about 8 inches above, and let it fall. The same thing would apply. You would need to do whatever the top right corner event is listed on the card the first time it's revealed. Again, you might have some of these other symbols come up like Asgard, Pimtech, Mystical, or Vibranium, depending on the decks that you're using. So again, follow the corresponding action when those come up for the first time in the destruction zone. Also, cards might be listed with an artifact type. This can be used later when it comes to recruiting characters from the character row. Other actions that you can do, again, extracting a card. This means you take a face-up card from the rubble and place it into your hand. So again, any cards in the rubble here that are face up, you could choose to take that directly in your hand after playing a card with the extract symbol. There's also the vault option. This means you can place a card from your hand into your vault. Certain cards will score you points at the end of the game when they are vaulted and only when they're vaulted. This card, for example, is worth 2 power at the end of the game, but that's only when it's vaulted. And so again, you would need to play that vault symbol from a card, or you could also pay 6 influence or 6 coins at any time to vault a card in your hand. So let's say this one again was in my hand, I could vault it, placing it under the vault deck, and then it would be worth 2 points for me at the end of the game. The other option you can do is demo, and this basically means you destroy or discard a face-up card from the rubble, and doing that you'll gain 2 influence or 2 coins. So again, let's say I demolished this card, I played a card from my hand that could do that, I would discard it from the game, and then take 2 influence or 2 coins from this pile, adding it to my total. So those are the options. So again, let's say I do 2 extract cards with this to start off. So I will extract and extract. So I'll take both of those. These are now into my hand. Another option you can do is you can discard a card from your hand at any time to gain 1 influence or 1 of those coins. So let's say I want to actually lock this one. I'm in luck that I can do any of these things from this card. So I'm actually going to lock, put it in the vault. So I'll play this above my vault. And then I'm actually going to vault this card and put it right in to gain those 2 points for the end of the game. I could also play this card, and so it's 1 coin to activate, and I could draw a card. On top of that, this card earns 1 power for each spell page in my possession at the end of the game. And so possession just means it's in your deck. You don't actually have to vault it to get that ability. But again, it's 1 coin if I want to draw that card and activate this card's ability. Let's say I don't want to do that, so I could actually discard this, get a influence or a coin to do that. And then I've got 1 more construction card. So let's say I do uncover, which is the green symbol. I'll play it as that, and I can uncover any one of these cards where the full radar symbol is present. Again, I flipped up a card with the collapse symbol. So again, the other player would take one and have one come in face up. Now this one appeared, so the event is the character. So again, discard that, push these over, flip up a new hero card there as well. Now, once I've taken those steps of playing all the cards in my hand, discarding any that I wanted for coins, it comes to the recruit stage. Now, when it comes to recruiting, how this works is you're going to look at the number of symbols that you have in your desktop. So right now I have 1 uncover, 2 extract, and 1 vault that I played. And so at this point, I'm going to look at the hero rows and see if I have any that actually match those symbols. And so at this point, when I look at the heroes, I actually don't have enough to recruit any of them based on the cards that I played that turn. And so with that being the case, I'll just simply discard the rest of my cards that I played this turn, draw 4 new cards, and then it would go to the next player. Let's say, for example, though, that I did have the requirements I did need to recruit one of these heroes. So let's say I will take this one, Maria Hill. At that point, I would simply put her underneath my desktop. And in this case, her hero ability is an endgame ability, which would give me points at the end of the game, or power, for each superhero icon that I have in my possession at the end of the game. And so there's actually 4 types of character cards. There's endgame cards like this. There's immediate cards where their effect would happen immediately if I can meet those conditions. There's activated hero types, meaning that I can use them once per game. And so this Goliath character, for example, if I spent 3 influence or 3 of those coins, I could activate it and use this ability to do the demolish option twice in a row. There's also an ongoing option, and this is kind of like a passive ability. So as long as I have Iron Man out, each turn I would get 1 extra influence or 1 of those coins every single turn. Another thing to note is the maximum number of heroes that you can have is 3. So you can still recruit other characters if you choose, but you'll have to decide which one you want to discard in exchange for the new hero you have coming in. Another thing is that at the end of every turn, you need to have 5 heroes at the top row. And so if you ever have a space that's empty, you want to move the cards over and then flip up a new card to make sure there's 5 in that top row. Finally, when it comes to endgame scoring, how this works is that you'll add up all of the score totals listed on your character cards here. Sometimes, again, you need to read this endgame character option if you have several of those. So in this case, it says +1 power for every superhero character I have in play. I don't actually have any of those currently in my deck, so I would not get any extra points. But if I did, I'd get those extra points. So again, add up your character power totals. You'll also take your vault cards and add up the power totals listed there. On top of that, you'll get 1 power for every 3 influence you have at the end of the game. So take your total influence coins, divide that by 3, and you'll get that total. So the influence points, points from your vault, points from any character cards, and any endgame abilities listed as well. Calculate that total, and again, the player with the most power or points at the end of the game wins. If there's a tie, the player with the most influence after having the most points is the winner. And again, if there's still a tie, you just split the win. So that's again how you play the game. And now that you have a better idea on how it works, let's jump into my review. All right, so now that I've had a chance to play through the game and walked you through a bit on the setup and how to play, how do I actually feel about it? Well, this game is a pretty complex deck building game. One thing that stood out to me is that there was a lot of additional rules compared to traditional deck building games that I play. And I think for first time players of the genre, this game might be a little bit harder or more confusing than it really needed to be. It really took me a couple playthroughs of the game to actually get the flow of the game and start getting a feel for how I could play my turns and how I might optimize my hands. But the first few times playing through felt very confusing. On top of that, I felt like the setup was a bit unclear according to the rule book and took some time to really figure that out to even set up the game. I feel like it fit the theme quite well, and it did feel like you were cleaning up throughout the rubble of these massive superhero, supervillain battles. And so that was cool, but I think that that's probably only going to appeal to very hardcore Marvel fans or people that are fans of the superhero genre. It does have some deck building mechanics, but as I played through, it didn't necessarily even feel like a deck building game because there were several different rules with the vaults, getting the influence and the different coins, playing cards with only specific types, recruiting characters. It was just a little bit more complex than I felt like it needed to be compared to most deck building games. I think it does have a harder learning curve than they probably anticipated, so I don't know if I would necessarily recommend this for younger players. It's probably going to take you several playthroughs to really get the hang of the game, and so that might turn people off. Again, I think if you're a fan of the Marvel theme and superhero type games, you'll probably enjoy this more so than people that are just fans of deck building games. And because of all the extra rules and different layers of the turns, I don't know if I would even qualify this as a deck building game, because as I played, I didn't really get that feel and flow of it as I normally do when I play deck building games. Should you play this game? I think if you're a big Marvel fan and enjoy the mechanics as I've gone through in the how to play section. But if you did like what you see, definitely go ahead and pick up a copy. There'll be a link in the description below where you can do so. But let us know in your comments below if you've played this game before, if you think this looks fun, if you're going to pick this up now that you've seen it. Let me know in the comments below. And if you'd like to help support the channel, pick out content and more, consider becoming a patron of ours over at nerdproblemsgaming.com/Patreon. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notifications to get the latest updates of new nerd videos we put out. But once again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you more soon.